Welcome, everybody. This is Don Finn, both with HR That Works and Think HR. And today I'm absolutely pleased to have Beth Miller on with us, who's the CEO of Executive Velocity. And Beth, I met through the Vistage organization. You may have heard me talk about in the past. It's the world's largest CEO learning organization, and Beth is runs a group of CEOs. They call her a chairperson that runs the group. I've had the opportunity to speak to about 300 groups, and Beth's had the opportunity to run those groups. So when I saw what she talked about, I was pretty excited about bringing her education to you folks. And so, Beth, the floor is yours. Why don't you give them a little bit more about your background, please?
Okay. Well, thank you, Don. I've been very excited about having the opportunity to present the From Potential to Talent, and it actually came from an ebook that I wrote recently. My background is pretty varied. Yes, I've been a Vistage chair for the last 8 years, but my husband and I had a consulting firm for about 10 years before that, and previous to that I worked for a Fortune 500 company, and part of my journey, my personal journey, has brought me to this whole idea of the fact that everybody has talent, but you need to be able to put them in the right position, in the right environment for them to shine. And today, my goal is to give each of you who are supporting, I assume, managers that may have some roadblocks in developing their talent. And so I'm going to challenge each of you today to be the role model and embrace some of the techniques that we're going to talk about later on, so that the managers that you're supporting will be able to actually take on these techniques and free you up for more important work that potentially you're not able to get to because you're into the details and having to support them day in and day out. So with that, I'm going to start with the first poll question, and it is, do you feel prepared to develop employees to their full potential?
Okay.
And I want you to think about
just, Beth, just for a
standpoint.
second, I have to launch the poll, and you'll see that happen, okay? You might not see, as a speaker, the poll itself, but it is now launched. All of you have up to 1 minute to answer it. If you want your HRCI credits, you have to answer it, okay? So please, continue.
And think about it from a standpoint of developing employees as well as helping to develop managers that you're supporting. So do you feel prepared to develop employees or managers that you're supporting to their full potential? Yes,
by the way,
no, or somewhat.
Yeah, for those of you listening, those are the three choices. And right now we've got somewhat in the lead with 78% of you voting. So there's another 20 seconds for anybody else who wants to vote. And it's always helpful if we all learn from each other if we all vote.
How are we doing there, Don?
Good. Somewhat still in the lead, and we've got 5 seconds left to go to vote before I close the poll and share it. Going once, going twice. Bada bing. Okay, it's closed. Let me share the results. So 75% of you said somewhat, 22% of you said no, and only 3% of you said yes.
Well, we have a lot of potential here for growth and moving up that ladder. So, and that's actually pretty much in line with other webinars that I've done. So you're not out of the norm there. So why is it, I asked this question about developing employees and managers, and why would we even care about doing and developing individuals around us? Well, I would suggest that probably a lot of you being in HR, you are spending a lot of time recruiting good talent. And with that, you want to be able to retain that good talent. And one of the key factors in retaining talent today is giving people the opportunity to grow and develop. And oftentimes that doesn't mean that traditional promotional ladder, because a lot of organizations have become a lot flatter. It's more about creating opportunities where it's what I like to call the corporate lattice, and giving people opportunities to take on new projects that might expose them to other departments, etc. So the caring aspect for you as an HR professional is, if you're developing and influencing the managers to develop, then the idea is that you're going to be able to retain more of those talented individuals that you've spent so much time recruiting. And as we know, I'm not going to get into a lot of the details because I would suspect that 99% of you understand this, that there's a lot of demographics that are creating this talent challenge. One is the boomers are leaving the workforce, the millennials aren't ready, and oftentimes what's happening in many of the industries, there is a mismatch in skills. You know, we still have an unemployment rate that's higher than it was 10 years ago, and part of that is because there is a skills mismatch. So it's really important that you as HR managers think about how you model the behavior of developing and growing your employees, as well as influencing those managers, so that the great work that you do bringing on good talent is rewarded. The other thing that we want to talk about is that there are 3 areas that talent development can have a really positive impact on. And one of them, obviously, is the talent retention that we talked about. The other is succession planning. There's a huge generation, the boomers, that are leaving the workforce at a rate of 10,000 a day, and that's creating a lot of challenges for you in how you make sure that the people that are staying with the organization that are younger are ready. So, you know, how are you identifying the potential, and i.e. that doesn't mean you specifically, but are your managers really able to observe and identify the potential talent? And then likewise, are they able to create that appropriate development plan? Because my goal for you as HR professionals is to be business partners at the C-suite. And in order to do that, you have to be able to leverage that middle management so you're not spending time doing what really they should be doing. So succession planning is important. The next area is talent retention, which we've talked about. I guess I would just add to this that it costs a lot of money. That, you know, there are estimates of as much as 2 times the employee's wages. If you think about high-level executives, it could cost even more than that. And then finally, engagement, employee engagement. Many of you are probably aware of the Gallup Q12, and many of those questions that are asked are really influenced by management. And if managers aren't prepared to be truly manager leaders, then you're not going to have the engagement that you really want in your organization. And as we know, engagement really drives productivity and thus profits. So that is another reason why you want to be focused on developing your talent. All right, as I move into the next phase of this presentation, I first want to kind of explore how this talent management can affect you if you don't have the managers that are prepared to develop employees. And those things are like, well, key employees walking out the door. And how does that affect you if you're spending your time having to constantly recruit and backfill versus working on being that strategic partner with the C-suite and identifying opportunities that would really leverage your talent and maybe break down specific organizational barriers that would allow managers to have the time and be more motivated to develop talent. The other thing could be that you might be looked over for a new opportunity because you personally haven't developed the people around you, and there's nobody there to take your place. And that, again, would happen not just for your organization, but for those managers that you're supporting. What I've found is that there are a couple of things that are keeping leaders from developing employees. These are things that you, as an HR professional, can really help break down the barriers. And that is looking at a variety of areas. One is how are managers actually reviewed? What are the metrics that are being used to rate their performance? What I've found in the past is that a lot of these metrics are focused on results. Now, results are great, but in the book that I wrote, Are You Talent Obsessed?, one of the things I talk about is that really, to be really talent obsessed, leaders need to be thinking about employees first and results later. But one of the reasons that they are focused reverse is because of the way that they're being measured. So as an HR professional, how can you influence the metrics that they are being rated on? What percent of their performance is based on the developing of their employees? What percent is based on retaining employees and providing employees with development opportunities and potentially promotions? So here's a place that you can become a real business partner with the C-suite, as well as help those individuals, those managers, and there are some already out there that are what I call talent obsessed, help them by really recognizing the work that they're already doing. because they're already showing the importance of developing employees. And they themselves have broken down some of their own barriers. But how do you make it more universal within the entire organization? So the two focused on results is one of the roadblocks. The next one is not enough time. And this is one that I run across a lot with my Vistage members. One of the things that I do is, as part of the program, is I provide executive coaching each month to them individually. And oftentimes they will bring up situations with their key employees where, somebody has continued to be coming into them for a decision that they are unable to make, or a solution to a problem that they are stuck on. And those executives, the Vistage members, their mindset is, gosh, my job is to solve their problems, versus my job is to help them think through the problem so that they solve it on their own. And one of the reasons that they do that is because it's a lot quicker to solve the problem versus stepping back and spending 5 or 10 minutes asking questions of the employee, guiding them to a solution. And I use the term, teach them to fish, don't keep throwing the fish. And this is the other roadblock that many of these managers find themselves faced with. And oftentimes they don't even know that they're faced with it because they have automatically been solving the problems.
That's that got a minute problem. You got a minute, got a minute.
Exactly. Yeah, and what are you doing? You're basically reinforcing them coming back for more solutions. And it's difficult for leaders to kind of look down the road 6 months and think, gosh, if I spent 10 minutes for every time that an individual came for a solution and instead helped them to find their own solution, maybe in 6 months I'd only have a third of these walk-ins of asking for a solution. So that's definitely a roadblock. And finally, it's the ineffective in the past, meaning many of these managers, especially the types of organizations that I work with that are Vistage-sized companies, generally are 100 million or less in revenue. And they oftentimes, these managers, have never really gotten management training,
right,
or leadership training. They were a great salesperson, or they were a great financial analyst, and all of a sudden they were a controller or a sales manager. And, the problem is that nobody taught them how to get work done through others. And they might focus on kind of the delegation aspect of it, but they miss out on kind of the coaching and performance feedback that's really critical to developing those folks to become effective leaders. And so there are tools, and what we'll be getting into is coaching as a really effective way of leveraging your managers if they can embrace coaching, either coaching in the moment or scheduled coaching, or both, which is even better. The other thing is they might be, i.e. the managers, might not be in the right position. They might not be a manager. And they may not really be that focused on the people aspect, but more so just strictly results. And, are you going to be able as HR and as the C-suite to transition them into a true manager? And that's a whole different discussion. Here, what I want to focus on is, okay, we've got managers who understand it. They may not understand how to get around these roadblocks. And you as a HR manager, you can do some things organizationally, like policies and procedures, and then you can also help the managers by providing them with some tools and techniques. So we're going to go to the next poll.
Okay.
I've mentioned coaching. How have you been coached as an employee in the past? Have 4 options. You've got one-to-one coaching with my manager, coaching from HR, an external coach, or I've never been coached.
And Beth, listening to you, it's one of the things that in my Vistage talks, I say, listen, half of your managers are above average and half the managers out there are below average. Which half do you think it's more training and coaching, And
right.
One poor manager, it's one thing when you got a poor employee, but if you have a poor manager, it's the impact is magnified 7 times,
Exactly.
We've all had bad bosses in our life, or bad supervisors or bad managers, and you know what it does to people's productivity.
Oh, big time. A huge impact.
And I got to...
people don't leave companies. They leave managers.
Yeah, that's what all the data says. And I got a question, which is a good one. I don't normally save them to the end, but this is appropriate.
Sure.
Are you differentiating coaching from regular training on tasks, right? And the answer is, of course, right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let me close this
coaching.
poll. I'm sorry. Let me close the poll and share it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the responses are 46% had one-to-one coaching with their manager, 3% coaching from HR, 14% had external coaches, and 37% have never been coached.
Wow. Okay. So there's a great opportunity. For those of you who haven't been coached, this next section I think will be interesting to you. And those who have been coached from a one-to-one perspective, this next section is a little different. The one-to-one coaching usually is one of those scheduled events where you meet monthly with your manager, and you discuss what you've been able to accomplish, what are some of the things that maybe are holding you back from moving forward. Your manager, if he or she's a good manager, will use a lot of the process that I'm going to go through right now, but it's a more scheduled type of process versus what I call coaching in the moment. And this process as a whole comes from a book called The Coaching Manager, Developing Top Talent in Business, and it was written by James Hunt and Joseph Weintraub. They're professors, so the book is a little textbook-like. So what I've done is I've kind of pulled the essence of the process out to make it a little more practical in nature. And One of the things before you even get into the process of coaching in the moment is to determine whether or not the individual is coachable. And I actually do this with my own coaching clients. Is the person somebody who is open to feedback and understands that coaching is not about a performance review. So you need, as an HR professional, to set the stage not only for your department, if you want to bring this coaching in the moment technique to your organization, but also to the managers that you're supporting. The environment needs to be a good one in order to have this coaching in the moment be effective. And the individual that you're coaching in the moment needs to be open to coaching. So one of the things that I find, for instance, is there are a couple of profiles, employee profiles, where coaching, whether it be coaching in the moment or scheduled coaching, is not terribly effective. That's the individual who's highly arrogant, who thinks he or she knows everything. We could call them the know-it-all. I worked with one individual who was extremely bright, Mensa type individual, and I was asked to do some coaching, and after doing an assessment and doing some interviews with some other folks, I went back to the CEO and I said, this isn't going to work. This is really going to be a waste of my time and your money. And so you need to make sure that the individual is prepared for this kind of process. So the process is a 5-step process. It starts with identify. Now, identifying the learning opportunity, the coachable moment that an individual can learn from. And this can be a variety of things. It could be various employee interaction where you might have observed interaction made a commitment to do a certain task, and they were late on it. Those are performance issues. There's other kinds of behaviors where they might be making excuses all the time or pointing fingers, or you might find that they are, they're the one that creates the rumors and is kind of the negative Nelly. There's also, and those are things that oftentimes come up, and it's an opportunity to provide some performance feedback and coaching. One of the things that I recommend is identifying kind of out of the ordinary behaviors where, you might have somebody who is a really good performer, and all of a sudden there was something that occurred that just didn't make sense. And, there's a great opportunity to pull that individual aside, because there might be something going on personally that you don't know about, and they might need some assistance on. So the first step, identify the opportunity. And the next step is asking open-ended questions. These are questions that will first cause the employee to reflect back on the situation. So it's important that when you do this type of coaching, that it's done shortly after you observe the actual behavior. And the questions also should give you more context around their thought process. And it might provide you with some missing data, or, as I mentioned earlier, maybe some personal issues that might be impacting behavior. Some of the questions that I recommend, the what's and the how's are really good questions, because it gets them to think more deeply about the situation. So, for instance, if it was a decision-making situation, what were the elements you considered when making a decision that potentially you saw as not the optimal decision? And maybe the decision problem is that they have difficulty making a decision. So then the question would be, what additional information do you need before making this decision? And the other technique is to use the scale question of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how comfortable are you in the decision that you made? And then the follow-on question would be, okay, they say it's a 7. Well, what would it take, what additional information would it take for that personal self-rating to go to an 8? That gets them, again, to think more deeply about the process and really gets them to self-reflect. So asking questions, first of all, to get them to reflect back, and then to gather additional information. The next step, and this is where we kind of go back and forth, it's the ask and listen, because obviously when you're asking a question, you have to stop and listen actively to the response. And this is one of the most difficult steps to the process, because many people will ask a question and have in their mind the answer. And so what they're listening for is not the other person's answer, but their answer. So really clearing your mind and actively listening for understanding and context is the most difficult thing that I have found working with the executives, because, again, they generally have the answer. So, as I said, we go back and forth between the ask and listen. The ask first is all about the understanding of the situation. Then what you need to do is to guide the individual, again, with questions, asking and listening, guide the employee to understand what kind of options they have to resolve the situation. The goal here is for the employee to own the solution. Without this guidance process of having the employee look at the various options and committing to a specific direction that they are confident that will be helpful to them to resolve the situation, they're not going to be fully committed. So it's very different than a management process where you've got the solution, you've identified as a manager that there's a problem, and you direct that individual to, this is how you are going to resolve it. The coaching aspect is, here's where I see the problem. Let's together, through asking and listening and answering, determine what the appropriate action is going to be that will help you resolve the situation. And then finally, we get into committing and what I call accountability. It's really your job as manager to get them to commit to that appropriate next step, get them to commit to when they are going to do that next step, and then follow up with them. And follow up with them in an appropriate manner. It obviously depends on what that next step is and what the long-term issue is. If it's something that can be resolved in a week, well, then you're going to want to follow up 3 days prior to the week commitment and find out how they're doing and whether they're going to make that commitment. The one thing that I've found in this part of the process is that leaders believe that once a commitment's been made, that that individual is going to, a week later, come with a resolution. That may happen over time, but in the beginning, you need to be monitoring the process and helping them because they might need to make some adjustments, especially when it comes to behaviors. So as a review, you've got identify. Well, first of all, make sure that you've got the right person to coach in the moment and that it's a safe environment for that coaching in the moment feedback. And then you've obviously identified some sort of behavior that needs adjustment. You need to ask the open-ended questions. You need to listen actively to get get the understanding that they have and the context that that's coming from them, and then guide them to a solution and get them commit to a solution date. All right.
Beth, I'm listening to this, and one of the things that I'm internalizing is this is, sometimes a conversation you have with yourself when you're coaching yourself, not just when you're coaching somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
It applies both ways.
Yep. No, totally. But it's a lot easier when you've got somebody that's kind of holding you accountable to your commitments.
Yeah, and one of the things I've learned, I don't know if you do this with your coaching or not, but to me, maybe it's my legal background, but I don't consider something a commitment until it's in writing. And I believe that has a large psychological impact to get.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something I probably need to add to this presentation. But you're right. One of the things when I work with the Vistage members, I have them put together their 3 business and 3 personal goals each year, and it's all down in writing. and it's up in front of the group each month, so everybody knows where everybody's going. And there's that kind of peer pressure, and the fact that it's in writing that really reinforces the accountability.
Yeah, put your commitments on your Facebook page so everybody can see them.
There you go. Yeah. I don't know if I do it on Facebook though. All right. So we've got the final poll question.
Okay. So let's launch that.
Yep. How much time each month do you spend developing others?
And those who are listening, yeah, if you want to tell them the choices, that'd be great.
Yeah, and I want to say that in this case, if there are people that are actual trainers, that's their role, take those training sessions, scheduled training sessions, out of this question, the answer to this question.
And those of you just listening, the choices were less than 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and greater than 15. And somebody was asking, is there a book or manual we can purchase that will guide us through these 5 steps? And I think at the end you'll let everybody know about your ebook, yes?
Yeah, and there, I also, and it's not up on my website yet, it probably won't be up until probably next week, but there is kind of a Cliff Notes version of this process.
Very good.
The 5 steps to coaching in the moment.
Okay.
So I would, have them check back.
Let's close that poll. Let's share the poll. And now those who are listening, tell you what the results are here. So we've got 400 people said less than 5 hours, 5 to 10, 34%, 10 to 15, 14%, and greater than 15, 6%. And I've got to believe a percentage of this is related to how many people you actually manage. So if you're only managing one person, you're not going to spend a lot of time coaching. If you're managing 10 people, you probably spend a lot of time, 10 times the amount of time coaching.
That's a good point, Don. But if you think about it from a standpoint of like 3 direct reports, all right? The way I like to look at it is, if in fact most leaders will say, people are my most valuable asset. All right. Well, if that's the case, how much time, because if you look at assets in general, how much time does your company spend on maintaining capital equipment or managing financial resources? If you said less than 5 hours a month, that's 3% of the time. And if you go up to 10 to 15 hours, that's 9% of your time. That's still not a lot of time for your most valuable asset. So what is it that's potentially holding you or managers that you're supporting back from spending more time developing? Well, in my book, I talk about meeting rhythms. And we just actually went through one of them, and that is that daily coaching in the moment, really observing and identifying those learning moments. But then you've got the weekly meetings. Most people have a weekly meeting, and usually that weekly meeting is around projects, how, the status of a project or the status of an ongoing activity, reviewing metrics, etc. But here is a great opportunity where you've got a team together that you can create team learning opportunities. And it doesn't take a lot of time. You can set aside 10 minutes, and maybe it's more time some weeks and less time other weeks, but you can start by asking team members questions that will drive the learning process and encourage others to share something specific that they learned the previous week, and it would promote discussions of how others can actually use that learning to their benefit as well. So it's not, what you're doing is you're leveraging the people on your team. You're not having to create any content. The content is coming from the work that's being done. So some of the questions that I suggest is, what one new thing did employees try that worked? It could be, who'd you help this week, and how did you help them? Or it could be something around having the employee be aware of the fact that they need to be asking for feedback from others. So who'd you get feedback from? And what did you actually do with that information? What did you learn from the information? What didn't work for you? And if it didn't work, how do you plan on making it work next time? All of those, I mean, I could go on, but just having a question that will stimulate dialogue amongst the members of the group. The other things you can do, which would take a little more than 10 minutes, is have the members of the team rotate doing a presentation. Gives them the opportunity to hone their presentation skills. Or rotate who actually leads the meeting. Have the individuals of your team create the agenda and facilitate the meeting. All of these are things that really don't take a lot of extra time, but provide employees on your team with the opportunity to learn and develop. So those are the weekly meetings. Now, I mentioned monthly meetings, and back when we were going through the coaching process, we talked a little bit about scheduled coaching versus coaching in the moment. And this monthly meeting is where you review what the individual has accomplished, but review their development plan. Everybody should have a development plan, and it should be reviewed on a monthly basis. Explore what's kind of holding them back and how you as a leader can remove those roadblocks. So the monthly meeting is focused on individual learning. The weekly meetings are team related. And the monthly meeting is really focused on what I call the development conversation, focusing on the future and building on the employee's strengths. So you've got team and individual. And then we move into quarterly. The quarterly meetings are the meetings where it's really focused on your organization and forecasting and planning with key executives where the gaps are going to be moving forward in order to get and execute the business plan. So it's a review of the employee pool, their attitudes, behaviors, performance, any skills gaps, which will then be integrated into that development plan that you review on a monthly basis. So you've got the daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly meetings. Now, what we've got now is we've got two techniques that you can use yourself, be a role model, as well as help the managers that you're supporting and teach them on how to coach in the moment and integrate learning into their ongoing meetings. So we've got removing barriers, and I talked a little bit about kind of those processes and metrics where they're not supportive of managers, leaders being what I call talent obsessed. So reviewing all of those, and those things can be anywhere from the hiring process to the onboarding process, the metrics that managers are being measured on. What are those things that are not employee first focused and are more results first focused? And create or recreate some of those processes, make recommendations to your C-suite. And what that will do is create a much stronger relationship for you with that high-level executive team. All right, and I can see we're running out of time here. So quickly, I'm going to go over one of these examples. And this is around, removing barriers. Customer service. What kind of barriers are within your organization around customer service that is not allowing people to grow and develop and the managers to be talent obsessed? A great example of this is Zappos. I don't know how many people are familiar with their customer service call center model, but they don't have any scripts. They are allowed to, when a customer calls in, they are allowed to interact with that customer in any way as long as they are delivering happiness to them. And that is the Zappos model. So what has that done? Well, their retention rate in call centers is phenomenally high compared to the industry average. So think outside the box when it comes to some of these processes and policies. All right, I'm going to have to wrap up here. I think we've got a few minutes for questions. And Don, if you could help there.
Yeah, I'm here. I just mute myself when I'm off. Unlike a lot of legal ones, we don't get a lot of questions on the non-legal ones. So if anybody has, you've got an expert here, Beth, if anybody's got a question, please type it in while we've got it here. And as you can see on the page, this is where you can learn more about these tools. one of the things that, just as an additional suggestion, what you're talking about, and I'm curious if you do it, I remember Peter Drucker once saying that you should always have people bring a suggestion of how they can improve their job to every meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And
that would be another.
That forces people thinking about that.
That'd be another great technique. Be another great technique to bring to the team meetings. Yeah.
Yeah, because that way, you know, as we all know, none of us is smart as all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not seen any employee suggestion systems that work that are not required. So,
yeah.
In other words, it's part of a process. It's not some blind event that goes on. So,
like the suggestion box.
Yeah, they have more dust on them than suggestions.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, they're very ineffective.
Yes.
And generally, when somebody is making a suggestion, their finger pointing is what they're really doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because they can be anonymous.
Yep. Exactly.
So just my 2 cents about it, and I agree with you that so much of what you said here should resonate with everybody. Nothing should feel like it's rocket science here, because it's not.
No.
I think so much of the challenge is yeah.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the challenge that HR professionals have today is many of them are caught up in this churn of talent, and they're really frustrated. They are not. Many of them aren't engaged because they're stuck in this role of recruiting for replacement, and they're not getting a seat at the table. And if they can really leverage and get those managers below them to understand how they can be effective in retaining talent, then they have the time and the energy to be doing things like making suggestions on removing those organizational barriers.
Couldn't agree more. And Luis wrote in bingo as his response to your statement. Beth, I hope everybody got everything out of this. That 5-step process is just such a sound process for anybody to use. And I was thinking of it, you know, I could still use it with my sons, you know.
Yeah.
It's available
it
not
really
just for me, for my family, but for employees as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. No, it gets people to really think through what they're doing and self-reflect on, you know, the impact that it has on others.
Yeah. So helpful. Any last words of wisdom you wanted to part with us?
No, I just think that, you know, what I hope that the group got was that, you know, if they're able to give their managers some tools like coaching in the moment, it's going to really open up time for them and make their job more fulfilling, because they're not spending time not only, you know, recruiting new talent, but also they're not spending time on being pulled in for performance feedback problems. Because if there's ongoing coaching, you never get to that point.
Yeah, I don't believe in performance management process in general. I just believe in the ongoing improvement process. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you, Beth, so much for coming on with us.
You're welcome.
If anybody's got any questions, Beth's contact information is here. I'm going to make myself the presenter, and just it's also on the program. We'll put up the PowerPoint here afterwards, and so people can watch it. And Beth's contact information is there as well in case you want to catch up with her. So thank you very much. I do appreciate it, and hopefully everybody goes from potential to talent. How's that?
Exactly. Well, thank you, Don. I appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, and thank you very much. Bye-bye.